Okay, I am here in fractions number 8 Jamboard. We're going to do some word problems involving fractions. Number 1 says Jillian bought a half a pound of turkey and 1 1/3 pounds of cheddar cheese at the deli. Both items are on sale for $6 per pound. The question is, how much does the turkey and cheese cost? Okay, so if we're at the deli and it's $6 per pound, we need to figure out how much pounds of turkey, in this case, a half pound of turkey. So I'm buying 1/2 pound of turkey. And if it's $6 per pound, so $6 for 1 pound, and I only want a half a pound, I would expect that to be half of $6. So I would expect it to be $3, right? To represent this using multiplication, I want 1/2 times the number of, or the price per pound, so times 6. So 1/2 times 6 will give me how much the turkey costs. And I already said that 1/2 of 6 would be 3, right? So I would expect the turkey to cost $3. But I am also buying cheddar cheese. I need to add the cost of the cheddar cheese. And it's also $6 per pound, and I'm buying 1 1/3 pounds of it. So I'm buying 1 1/3 pounds of cheese at $6 per pound. So I'm going to multiply the amount of cheese by the cost per pound. So I'm going to multiply by 6. Okay. Now that I have my problem set up, let's multiply 1/2 times 6. What's 1/2 of 6? 3, right? So it's $3 for the turkey. And over here I have 1 1/3 times 6. Because we're multiplying using a mixed number, let's make this improper by using the C method. So 3 times 1 is 3, plus 1 is 4. Okay, so 1 1/3 is the same thing as 4/3, right? And I'm multiplying this by 6. So I'm going to multiply by 6 over 1. That's still 6. Now I'm going to look and see, can I cross simplify? Well, 4 over 1 can't be cross simplified, but 6 over 3 can, because 6 and 3 are both divisible by 3. So 6 divided by 3 is 2, and 3 divided by 3 is 1. Okay, so I have over here, this is my turkey. It's $3 for turkey. And I'm going to add my cheese on here. So what's 4 times 2? That's 8. And my denominator would just be 1, right? 1 times 1, that's 1. So 8 over 1 is simply 8. So it looks like it's $3 for turkey and $8 for cheese. And so how much does the turkey and the cheese cost? Well, 3 plus 8 is 11. And here we're talking about money. So I need a dollar sign. Okay, altogether it is $11. Number 2, Liam has 8 3/4 gallons of paint. He wants to use 2/5 of the paint to paint his living room. Question is, how many gallons of paint will Liam use? Okay, so he has this many gallons of paint total, 8 3/4. So he's got 8 3/4 total gallons of paint. And he wants to use 2/5 of that paint. So 2/5 of the paint. Okay, remember I talked to you in previous lessons about the word of. Of in math means multiply. So I want 2/5 of, or 2/5 times the amount of paint. And this right here, 8 3/4, is the amount of paint that he has. So I want 2/5 of, or times the amount of paint. So 8 3/4. Because I'm multiplying with mixed numbers, I'm going to use the C method to make this mixed number an improper fraction. Okay, so I'm going to have 2/5 of, or times, whatever this is, as an improper fraction. So let's use the C method to make it improper. So 4 times 8 is 32. 32 plus 3 is 35, right? So my numerator is 35, and my denominator is still 4. So 35 over 4, right? So 8 3/4 is the same thing as 35/4, 35 over 4. Now I'm going to look and see, can I cross simplify? Yes, I can, right? I'm going to look here, 2 over 4. 2 and 4 are both divisible by 2. So I'll cross the 2 out, make it a 1, and cross the 4 out. 4 divided by 2 is 2, right? So I divided the 2 and the 4 both by 2, and so I get 1 over 2. Now look and see if I can cross simplify the other way. So I have 35 on top here and 5 on bottom here. I know that 35 and 5 are both divisible by 5 because they end in 5. So 35 divided by 5, that is 7, and 5 divided by 5 is 1. Okay, now that I've finished cross simplifying, I'm going to multiply straight across. So 1 times 7 up top is 7. So my numerator is 7, and 1 times 2 is 2. So my denominator is 2. Okay, so how many gallons of paint will Liam use? I could say he's going to use seven halves of a gallon. Okay, but let's make this mixed so that it sort of makes more sense. So 7 halves, that is 7 divided by 2, right? Top number goes inside, bottom number goes outside. I know 2 goes into 7 3 times. 3 times 2 is 6. I would subtract and get 1. Okay, so that becomes my numerator. That's my denominator. Okay, so I get 3.5, and my label should be gallons, right? So he used 3.5, and the label for gallons is G-A-L, lowercase g-a-l. So he used 3.5 gallons to paint his living room. Number 3, it says today Caitlin rode her bike 5.5 miles. Yesterday she rode 6 1/4 miles. The question is, what is the difference in length between the two rides? Okay, you see that word difference? Difference in math makes you think of what operation? Addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. You see the word difference, you should think subtraction. So I want to find the difference between 6 1/4 and 5.5. If I want to find the difference between them, of course, I need to set up my subtraction problem. I'm going to put the biggest number first, so 6 1/4. And I'll put the smallest number second, so 5.5. So what's 6 1/4 minus 5 1/2? I'm going to leave this problem there for you to finish because we should be pretty good now with subtracting fractions and mixed numbers. Of course, when we add or subtract fractions, we need a common denominator. Right now, as you can see, we don't have a common denominator, but we need to get one. We need to create equivalent fractions. And so you can make 2 to be 4, right? So finish this problem on your own, but I've set it up for you. But once you take 6 1/4 minus 5.5, your answer will be the difference in length between the two rides. Number 4, a picture framer has a thin board 10.5 feet long. The framer notices that 2 3/8 feet of the board is scratched and cannot be used. The rest of the board will be used to make small picture frames. Each picture frame needs 1 2/3 feet of the board. At most, how many complete picture frames can be made? Okay, so we have a lot of information here going on. So let's break it into parts. First, the first sentence says we have a thin board 10.5 feet long. Let's stop there. Okay, so we got this board that is 10.5 feet long. Okay, next, the framer notices that 2 3/8 feet of the board is scratched and cannot be used. So of this 10.5 feet long board, I'm going to take away 2 3/8 feet of it because it's no good, it can't be used. So I'm going to take away 2 3/8 of that board because it cannot be used. So I need to subtract 10 1/2 minus 2 3/8. Again, we're subtracting fractions, and so I need a common denominator. I know that I can get 2, the denominator 2, to be 8 by multiplying by 4 over 4, right? And so this will become 10 and not 1/2, but now 4/8. Okay, so it's 10 4/8, and I'm going to subtract the part of the board that's no good and can't be used. So I'm going to subtract 2 3/8. And of course, when I do that, I subtract my fraction parts. 4/8 minus 3/8 is 1/8. Then I subtract my whole numbers. 10 minus 2 is 8. So I started with 10.5 feet long board. I subtracted 2 3/8 because it's scratched and can't be used, and I'm left now with 8 1/8 feet long board. The third sentence says the rest of the board will be used to make small picture frames. Okay, so I'm going to use this part, 8 1/8, to make the picture frames. It goes on to say that each picture frame needs 1 2/3 feet of the board. So you need 1 2/3 feet to make a picture frame. And so the question is, at most, how many complete picture frames can be made? So here's the board that I have, 8 1/8. if I make one board, if I make one picture frame, I need 1 2/3. So let's say I take away 1 2/3 because I'm going to make one picture frame with it. Let's say I take away another 1 2/3 because I make my second picture frame. Then I take away a third 1 2/3 to make my third picture frame. And so look what I'm doing here. Every time I make a picture frame, I'm using or taking away 1 2/3 feet of that board to make the picture frame. And so as you can see, I am repeatedly subtracting. And if I repeatedly subtract, you know that repeated subtraction is the same as division, right? And so instead of repeatedly subtracting, let's divide. Let's divide the total amount of board that I have, which is 8 1/8. Let's divide that by how much it will take to make one picture frame. So namely 1 2/3. So I'm going to divide 8 1/8 by 1 2/3. Okay, so because I'm dividing mixed numbers, I need to make these improper fractions so that I can divide. So let's use the C method. 8 1/8. Let's use the C method to make that improper. So 8 times 8 is 64. 64 plus 1 is 65, right? All over the original denominator of 8. Okay, now let's make 1 2/3 improper by using the C method. 3 times 1 is 3. 3 plus 2 is 5, right? All over the original denominator of 3. So 1 2/3 is the same as 5/3. Now, because I am dividing fractions, I know that dividing a fraction is the same as multiplying by its reciprocal. Okay, so now I'm going to come up here to have more room. I'm going to use KFC because I'm dividing fractions. Remember, I only use KFC when dividing fractions. So I'm going to keep this first fraction as it is. So I'm going to keep 65 over 8. I'm going to flip my second fraction, or take the reciprocal. Remember, the reciprocal is the mathematical word for flipping a fraction. And so when I flip 5/3, it's going to be 3/5, right? Or 3 over 5. So I kept the first fraction, I flipped the second, and then C, I changed from division to multiplication. Okay, to multiplication. So now I have 65/8 times 3/5. I'm going to look and see, can I cross simplify? 65 over 5? Well, I know they're both divisible by 5, right? Because they end in 5. So what if I divide 65 by 5? You would find that it's 13. And 5 divided by 5 is 1. So 65 over 5 cross simplifies to 13 over 1, or 13. 3 over 8, can it cross simplify? No, it can't. So I'm going to multiply straight across. 13 times 3, that's 39. And on the bottom, 8 times 1 is 8. So I get 39 over 8. That's, of course, an improper fraction. So let's make it a mixed number. Let's divide 39 by 8. 8 goes into 39 how many times? 4, right? Because 4 times 8 is 32. I subtract 39 minus 32 to get 7. And so I am left with 4 7/8. Now let's make sense. Let's make sense of this. Am I answering the question? What does the question say? The last sentence is the question, right? It says, at most, how many complete picture frames? How many complete picture frames can be made? So we just found that we can make 4 7/8 picture frames. So I can make 4 complete picture frames and 7/8 of another. So my answer to this question is not going to be 4 7/8. My answer to the question is going to be 4. I can make 4 complete picture frames. 4 complete picture frames. So I'll say 4, and let me add a text box in here. Complete picture frames. 4 complete picture frames would be my answer, right? For number 4. Very good. So lots of work there, but when you have a multi-step problem like that, it's very important to break it into parts and go step by step through it. And then be sure at the end that you're actually answering the question. Okay, last one for the video, number 5. We have a rectangular patio that has an area of 20 5/6 square feet, and the width is 3.5 feet. The question is, what is the length of the patio? So we have this rectangular patio. Let me add a rectangle in here. How about this? Well, that's a square. How about rectangle? There we go. Rectangle. All right, so here's our rectangle. And we know the area is 20 and 5/6. So inside, because the area is of course, the amount of area inside the rectangle, is 20 and 5/6. Okay. The width is 3.5. So let's say this right here is 3.5. It's 3.5 feet wide. Okay. Our question is, what is the length? What is the length of the patio? So how do we find the area of a rectangle? Remember, the area of a rectangle, A, area, equals L, that's a cursive L, length times width, right? Length times width. Well, let's plug in what we know. We know the area, right? We know the area is this, 20 and 5/6. Bring my equal sign down. Do we know the length? No, we don't know the length, so I'm just going to leave it as an L. Do we know the width? Yes, we do, right? The width is this, 3.5. Okay, so area of rectangle is length times width. I plugged in the area, I plugged in the width because those were the items that I knew from the problem. I don't know the length. So some number times 3.5 is going to give me 20 and 5/6. How am I going to figure out what this number is? Well, let's use our knowledge of inverse operations. How would I undo multiplication? What is the opposite of multiplication? You should say division, right? And so we're going to learn more about this later in the year when solving equations. But for now, let's divide the right side by 3.5 and the left side by 3.5. I am undoing multiplication by division. And so what happens when I divide both sides by 3.5 is that these 3.5s simplify to 1, right? Because I have 3.5 over 3.5, or I could say 3.5 divided by 3.5, which is simply 1. And so I have 1 times L, which is just L, the length. The length is equal to these numbers that are being divided. The length is equal to 20 and 5/6 divided by 3.5. And so I'm going to leave it to you to divide those mixed numbers, right? 20 and 5/6 divided by 3.5. If you can correctly divide those mixed numbers, you will get the length of this rectangle. Because these are mixed numbers, you should first use the C method to make them improper and then divide. Of course, we're dividing fractions, and so I know you will use, or you know you will use KFC, right? You'll keep, flip, and change. The remaining problems in number 6, you're adding fractions. You're finding the sum, which is the answer to an addition problem. And so I have a hint over here that you need a common denominator when adding fractions. Number 7, you're subtracting mixed numbers. So again, get a common denominator. Number 8, find the quotient. Remember, the quotient is the answer to a division problem. And so because you're dividing fractions, you would need to use KFC. Number 9, dividing fractions. Quotient is the answer to division problem, so use KFC. Number 10, dividing fractions. And then frame 11 tells you how to turn it in. Click View Assignment and turn in. And once you turn it in, I'll give you feedback on the ones that you missed so that you can make your corrections.